ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the CptsLogs podcast. We got Richard Tello, the one and only Jamaican Bacon.
Mhm.
Obviously, we got one good pilot, the Mark Attack. How you doing, Mark?
Doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, buddy. And we have a very, very special. Our guests are always VIP. We got Eric Mann's good friend. I've known him for a long time. Hey, Eric, welcome. How have you been, my friend?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely, buddy. All right, so it'll be a good episode today. We're just gonna run through it, have some conversation, gonna learn some stuff. I'm gonna learn some stuff today. There's a few things that Eric brought up that I find pretty interesting. I've known him for several years now. We've actually been in an airline together. It was back when I was there. We won't say what the airline is or the name of the airline, but we can talk trash about it. What do you say, Eric? We're gonna trash the.
Hey, man, that sounds good to me.
And then we'll tell you in the next episode. So you're just gonna have to come back.
But Eric was the union rep as well, and so he can talk about that, the process about that. But when he was there and I met him, he was very straightforward individual. Like he says what's on his mind, and I think people really nobody likes the truth, especially in today's world, right? So,
Yeah.
so I like him. I like a lot. So Eric, well, we'll let you start off a little bit, just a little bit intro. We're going to talk about basically. I guess I'll just ask you. When did you first get into aviation? And then if Mark would jump in, and we'll just go from there. But when did you first, decide you wanted to be a pilot? How long was that?
Oh, man, that was when I was a little kid. My mom's first husband was a pilot at Dyess Air Force Base, and he basically took me flying when we went down to see her family. And from then on, I was hooked. He not only just took me flying, we did some loops, some spins, some rolls, and he was like, "Hey, are you gonna be sick? Let me know." And I was like, "No." He's like, "Do you have any questions?" I was like, "Yeah. When are you gonna let me take over?" And he's like, "Man, I guess you're cut out for this." So ever since then, I've always had the bug, and started paying my own way because my dad wanted me to be an attorney, and I was like, "No, that's not for me." And he's like, "Well, you're gonna have to pay for it yourself." And I was like, "Okay, I will." So it took me a little while, but I paid for it myself and made it all the way to the airlines. Before that, I was did everything like everyone else. I was a flight instructor. Flew air ambulance out of a Pilatus PC-12, great airplane, loved the plane. And then got hired on with the airlines and love the airlines. Great job, love the work schedule and everything. And everyone I met was just incredible people. And it was a great job to have. And, now I ventured off doing other things because you never know what this world's going to entail. And I happened to lose my medical. So once I lost my medical, I was like, man, am I going to get it back? What do I need to do to get it back? And if I get it back, do I want to still fly? What am I going to do if I don't have my medical? A pilot is all I know. And
Yeah.
so, God throws mysterious things at you and you figure it out from there. And it ended up working out pretty good. So, if I get my medical back, will I go back to the airlines? I don't know. There's a lot of options out there. I could do air ambulance if I wanted to fly again, but another avenue is flight instructor at like flight safety or something like that for other airline captains and first officers because I loved helping out those guys when I was a representative for the pilots union and was working my way as a flight instructor through the sims and through the airline that we worked at. So I've always loved helping out pilots and just
Let's talk
love.
about that. Can you? Let's talk about. I realized I was on mute there. Let's jump back to that. To you getting on to the airline. So yeah, generally it's the same process. I mean, Mark is doing the same process right now. He's a flight instructor. Him and I initially started off and going through, the same mud of paying for this and all that stuff. But it's generally the same transition. Um, you get the bug, CFI, then you somehow get to the airline. Um, but you, so what was the process in you becoming like a union rep for that specific airline, and why did you decide to do that?
Growing up, I was brought up to not like the union from my dad. He did not have one good thing to say about a union. Of course, he came from a different era. He came from the 40s and stuff like that. His background was the 101st Airborne, World War II. But the more and more I learned on my own what the union exactly does, the more I was interested, and the more I realized that, man, these guys are there to help pilots out, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
Uh, the ALPA is one of the biggest pilot unions in the world. We're over 100,000, I believe, right now.
yeah,
And we actually brought in Canada because Canada pilots were really getting screwed from the COVID and everything else. And they really needed help. And I was impressed of what ALPA was doing for the Canadian pilots. It was pretty cool. And, having a union that's strong like that really gives you a good voice as a pilot. And one of the things, once I got into being a union rep, the reason I took the job was because the guy that put his name in the hat to be the first officer representative for the company that we worked for. I was like, man, he's just doing this to put a name on his resume. He's not going to be there for the pilot, and I want to be there for the pilot that has a question that's, the company may be unintentionally screwing him somehow or something like that. And I want to represent the pilots that are coming up through the ranks and stuff. And once I started helping out the pilots, I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't mind taking calls. My phone was always ringing. I'd pick up a call at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. Would never not answer a phone call. But I loved, and everyone I worked for in the union felt the same way. That's why they're in the union, to help pilots out. And it was a great mentality, and I loved it.
How do
yeah.
you what were the steps for getting into that? Is it a position that you're sort of elected for, or you just apply like a normal job? And what kind of skills do you need to kind of have that's required to kind of step into a role like that?
Well, obviously it's a volunteer job. You're not going to get paid for it. But basically, you're elected to that position. They're going to have an election for a first officer representative for the pilots union at the airline that I was at. You put in your name, and what I did was I put my name in the hat to be the first officer representative. And every time I would come to a base or something like that, I would make it a point to go into the pilots room uh, and talk to all the pilots and say, "Hey, what are your views on this? What are your issues? What are you having problems with?" And I'd say, "Oh, by the way, my name's Eric Mann. And I'm trying to be the first officer pilot representative for you guys. So I want to know." And I was touching base with every single first officer out there, trying to find what they wanted a voice for.
Okay.
And then, I say, "Hey, here's my card. If you like it, vote for me." And, I was voted for overwhelmingly. And then I never got out of it. They always voted for me. I think the thing is every 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, something like that, they have another vote. And I was in it for 5 years. So the only reason I got out was my own choice. Um, I got out on a medical, and I was still the first officer representative, but I was just sitting at home recovering and stuff. And I realized that to be a first officer representative for the union, that should be held by a pilot flying the line. That shouldn't be held by a guy sitting in his house recuperating. I don't know the
Yeah,
day-to-day problems of the line pilot.
right.
And so I relinquished my position voluntarily. And they were like, "Hey, you're still going to the meetings and everything through the computer and stuff. You don't have to." And I was like, "No, it should be held by a line pilot, not someone sitting at home." And that was my own view on it.
Hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. I
I
will
don't know if
say,
you guys agree with that or not, but that's the way I felt.
no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. Um, the union's almost like insurance, man. As an airline pilot, you know, you are gonna screw up, which is it is gonna happen. you, you know.
Yeah.
You are. I mean, you want to give some examples, some of the things you've gone called. You're like, what in the hell is going on
Well,
with this guy?
well, the thing I liked about it was there's a grievance process. You don't just get fired by the airline. Even if you royally mess up, there's a grievance process, and there's a panel of judges from the company, and you're represented by the union, by someone from the union, and not just me. You have two other members in there that have your back. That even before it goes to like an informal hearing, we talk about it. We meet with the company and we say, hey, look, this is what happened. This is what was going on in his life or whatever. Let's try to solve this without going to an informal meeting. And a lot of times we would solve those problems, but a lot of times you couldn't. And you'd have to go to this informal meeting. And, a lot of times it was stuff like a guy did 2 busts on a check ride or 3 busts. And, the company was thinking of letting him go. And, he'd call us up and we'd say, hey, wait a minute, let's go meet with the company. Look, man, this guy's father just passed away. He's been flying. He hadn't had a chance to study for the check ride or anything. His mind wasn't into it. Let's redo the check ride and stuff like that. So a lot of times we give him a second chance and stuff like that. But then you get cases where the guy got caught. Somebody reported that they smelled alcohol in his breath or something, and he didn't admit to it or anything, but he'd show up and they'd wait till you sign the paperwork. Once you sign the paperwork saying, I am 100% okay to fly this aircraft and I'm in charge of this aircraft and I'm responsible for the 76 people on board, that's when all of a sudden the guys step in and say, hey, come with us and we're going to need you to do a breathalyzer. And one of the guys that got that problem, I don't know if he stayed out all night drinking or if he, had a drink in the morning or what, but they waited for him to sign the paper. And this is the worst case scenario, obviously. And he had a million chances from what I was talking to the captain at the time and everybody else. The captain told him, hey, I don't think you're feeling quite right for this flight. Why don't you call in sick? And he's like, no, I'm okay. And,
Hint,
it
hint,
was,
those are the secret word, by the way. Somebody's going, hey,
Right.
I should call the
yeah,
sync today. Those are the secret. Should I say this on the podcast?
yeah,
Well, I think
Good.
we were talking about that before. I think a little bit, Richard. I don't know if we had that on an Aaron episode, but we were talking about kind of some situations like that where you're given a chance to go, but as soon as you say I'm going to go do it, well, yeah, you put yourself on the stick.
Yeah.
yeah. And this guy, once he signed the paperwork, they put him on the hook for 76 counts of attempted manslaughter.
Wow.
Because
What?
there was 76 people on board that plane, and he signed his name saying, I'm 100% qualified to fly this plane.
Wow.
And they took him in, and he blew over the legal limit, and our legal limit is 0.000. So, I mean,
Right.
he blew over the legal limit for a driver of
Yep.
a vehicle, of a car.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
So
crazy.
that's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
There was other scenarios where, the first officer just got hired on the company, didn't know the rules and regulations, and the company was trying to call him on the phone to see if he's doing this flight, but he's on a deadhead flight to go to say Houston to do the flight, and he wasn't answering his phone because he was on a deadhead flight. So they gave it to somebody else, and he gets in. They're like, "Hey, you were AWOL, and now you got this on your record." And he's like, "Wait a minute, I shouldn't have this on my record or whatever." And he called me up and say, "Hey, is this right?" And I'd say, "No, let me take care of it. This is not right, But he'd have to prove that he was on a deadhead, which is easy, And so a lot of, 98% of my stuff was stuff that pilots should not have been, stuff that should not have gone on their record. And we were able to get that off the record. And that felt great. That's why I stayed in the union. It was stuff like
That's
that.
awesome.
The crazy thing is, this is the part that people that are not in the actual airline platform, because you're flying. When you're flying, flying's fun, right? You get in the plane, you're flying. That's a good part. But then there's all of
Most of
this
the time.
stuff. There's all of this stuff that you have to deal with. Like it's a battle all the time of scheduling, of rest, of of work. It's all these things. It's almost like you're running your own little business, and people are trying to screw you over all the time. You have to
Yeah.
fight. It's
Well,
all it's not stop. And then the union's like your insurance. You call
yeah.
or your lawyer or your attorney. Hey man, this just happened. I need help with this and that, and it's nonstop. You know.
I'll give you a weird case that you guys probably, I never even thought about this before, and people should think about this. This first officer, he had to do a physical, and long story short, the doctor says, well, you have sleep apnea. You need to get one of these machines, one of these sleep apnea machines. Well, these sleep apnea machines record your breathing through the night and everything else. And what it downloaded to the FAA, which it downloads to the FAA if you're a pilot, he
Oh
wasn't
really?
using the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not using the machine as much as they wanted him to use it. He was supposed to use it like 77% of the time, and it came back and said he was only using it 70% of the time. And so the FAA sent him a letter saying, hey, you lost your medical. And he called me up. He's like,
Wow.
hey, I got a flight tomorrow. What do I do? And I was like, you can't fly. You just lost your medical. Call the company right now. Tell them you're out, and I'll take it from here. Well, come to find out, the guy just had a baby, and he was using that machine every single night. But the baby would wake up crying, and he'd take that machine off, and he'd put it down next to his bed, and he'd go take care of the baby, put the baby back to sleep, get back in the bed, put the machine back on. Well, that time he wasn't using it, it was recording, and it was sending all that information to the FAA. And so finally we realized this, and the FAA was like, they contacted me and they said, we had no idea we have cases like this. And I was like, yeah, and you just took a medical off of a guy that was in the military for us. He's a great guy. He's a pilot. He did everything perfect. And this machine says he's not using it as much as you want him to use it. And he just had a baby. And that was one of the cases that really I liked helping the pilots out. It's stuff like that you don't even think of, though.
Yeah. Did he? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's very
Was he able to
crazy.
get it? Go ahead, Mark.
We got his medical back. It did take some time, but we got it back within 2 weeks.
Oh, 2
And
weeks.
the company totally understood. I don't think they gave him back pay or anything, but they totally understood.
Yeah.
And the union thanked me for bringing it to their attention. They were like, we had no idea this was going on. So if you don't tell your union rep, what's going on in your life and stuff like that, how's the union supposed to know? How's the FAA supposed to know what's going on? And I had no idea these machines reported to the FAA.
Yeah, no
It's
doubt.
all Wi-Fi.
Let's
Talk
take the
about-
signal through your Wi-Fi. I didn't know that, dude. I had no idea. I just learned that today, that they the sleep apnea machines were reporting to the FAA.
Yeah, they told me I had to be on a sleep apnea machine, and I hate that thing. Oh,
It's pretty bulky from what I remember seeing.
yeah, it's bulky, and they want me to. If I was a pilot, I'd have to take it on my trips with me too,
Yeah.
and use it in the hotel rooms. Mine's pretty quiet, and it's not too bad, but it's still, it's weird sleeping with it on,
Yeah.
at least for me.
And if you don't get good sleep anyways, then it's kind of mitigating the objective, right? Like
Yeah.
you're just going to go in fatigued anyways. And then
Yeah.
from what I understand, we should all be able to call in fatigued, but it kind of rubs people the wrong way, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I
you're
know,
going to be fatigued, and as a pilot, you're gonna have that time where you're feeling 100%. You check into a hotel, and all of a sudden you wake up the next morning feeling like crap, and you're supposed to fly at 6:00 in the morning. What do? I mean, you're gonna have to call the company, get another crew in there, get someone out of the
Reserve.
quick calls, reserves.
Yeah. I know. Envoy. I can say that name because I'm not saying anything bad, but colon fatigue was not supposed to be anything that affects you back when it first came out. Because I I started when it first came out to a point where you could just randomly call fatigue. I think there was a time where you couldn't do it before I
Yeah.
started. Yeah. And it's not supposed to be like you're supposed to be able to go, I'm fatigued, and the company goes, okay, and that's it. But it was never that way. That they would be required to what did Envoy do? You were required to ASAP it. So if you're fatigued, you're required to ASAP it, and then there was something else they would do um, that wasn't within the FAA regulations. So but the company do, even though they say you should call fatigue, they do frown on it. They make you feel like you're committing a sin. You
Yeah.
know. So what
What is
about go ahead, Mark.
what does it mean to ASAP something?
Oh, what does the acronym stand for? Eric, do you remember? AV.
Man, don't get me lying
I didn't mean,
now.
didn't mean to put you fellas on the spot.
Yeah. No, it's basically it's a self-reporting system for safety.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So and there's a process, right? There's a FAA, there's a ASAP committee.
Yeah,
Generally,
and you can file an ASAP anytime you want. It's basically self-reporting to the FAA saying, "Hey, look, this is what happened, and I'm just letting you guys know about it, whatever." And
Hmm.
the FAA came out with this ASAP report to basically they wanted pilots to report conditions and not get in trouble. So, like,
Hmm.
say you were coming into an airport one time, this doesn't have to be you're sick or anything, but just say you're coming in and you're shooting an approach and you came in a little bit fast or whatever. You could file an ASAP report because you came in fast or you did something, and you're basically letting the FAA know, hey, I think I might have messed up a little bit, but just letting you guys know that I'm reporting this on myself, and they're like, "Hey, thanks for letting us know. Nobody's in trouble."
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have that implemented at our school, and it's highly encouraged. I just don't think we ever refer to it as ASAPing it, but yeah, we have the
NASA,
same policy as
the NASA program, the GA
if
world.
you have any kind of situation that you put yourself in or somebody else puts you in, we report it all, and that way you covered yourself. And yeah, same. We won't get in trouble. It's almost protects you in a way.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
protect you for doing something you known to be.
Reckless.
You can't be like, hey, FAA, I intentionally brought on a gun on the plane and I changed my mind. you know,
no,
what is
but
it? Yeah.
I'll give you an example, a weird example that happened to me. We were doing a flight. It always happens on the last day of the flight, go home day, and it was the last
100%.
leg, last flight of the day. We're going back from Florida to Houston, and somewhere over Louisiana, we get a call from the flight attendants in the back saying, "Hey, we got a medical emergency back here," and we're like, "Oh crap, what's going on?" Well, there's this lady unconscious in the aisle, and there happens to be two doctors on board, and they're working on her right now, and we're like, okay, so we had to get the cell cal out and call the MedLink, and the captain's dealing with all that. I'm talking to the air traffic controllers, and I'm trying to listen to both conversations at once. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I heard the captain saying, "Okay, you want us to divert?" my ears perked up, and I'm like, "Oh crap." So then I started asking the FAA, "Hey, we got to divert." Long story short, we landed in Louisiana. And once we landed there, the paramedics met us there. They took her off. Make a long story short, the captain asked me and the rest of the crew, "Hey, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to stay here and call the company and get another crew over here? Or do you want to keep on going to Houston?" And we're like, it's a short flight to Houston. Let's keep on going. Well, what happened was the doctors on board used every single thing they could in that emergency medical kit.
Mm.
And hindsight is 2020. We just wanted to get home. I guess I was like, "Hey, I'm feeling good. Let's go." And the captain's like, "It doesn't matter to me either way." And the flight attendants are like, "No, we could go. Let's go." So we flew from Louisiana to Houston with no emergency medical kit, and we forgot to write it down in the books that we needed a medical kit. We had to get special permission to fly that flight without emergency medical kit on board. And so we went to Houston, and the story didn't end there. The adrenaline crashed. We weren't thinking. We never wrote it in the trip can. And that plane went on 5 more flights without an emergency medical kit. The flight attendants never picked up on it, even though they're supposed to check the emergency medical kit. One of the flight attendants on like the 5th flight opened the thing and was like, I think I'll check the emergency medical kit. And there was like nothing in there. And she's like, oh my gosh, and reported it to the company. And then everybody, had to call the company and figure out what was going on. And then, the captain called me up, said, man, you need to make an ASAP report, just to cover your own butt, and so hindsight's 2020, but it's little things like that you don't think of.
Yeah,
So
100%. And there's a ASAP, I think it's like an ASAP committee, by the way. So, for example, maybe you climb above your altitude or you climb to the wrong altitude, right? And you might not even know you did it, or whatever. Maybe you did. And usually the first thing when that gets reported to the company or the FAA, the first thing they generally ask is, did you ASAP it? And if it's a yes, you ASAP it, which means that you made a mistake, you reported it, you self-report, you draw down all information saying, hey, I made a mistake. This is what we need to do. This is what I need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. If you didn't do that, just completely pretend like it never happened and hopefully nobody finds out. If the FAA says, okay, yes, ASAP it, then the process ends there. They file it, report it, and everything. If you did not ASAP it, then it starts a new process, and they're going to come ask you, and hopefully you can. Hopefully your union is good as Eric. They can figure out a way to get you out of it, kind of thing. That's generally how it works, in a sense. Yeah. So ASAP it, it's if you do it, no matter what it is, generally you'll be good to go.
And it's not only you telling the company, you're not going to hide anything from an airline company because the plane tells on you. Yeah. It'll report when you're landing too fast, when you're going too high, when you busted your minimums doing an approach and stuff like that. It'll report on you.
Yeah, it's funny is you guys didn't have to deal with this, but our planes do that now as well. Every time we bring our Archers back, our Seminoles back, all the flight data gets uploaded to the safety officer. They record it all. If you overspeed the prop, if you overspeed the flaps, if you go too low on an emergency procedure practice, they're going to know about it. And they track all of our touchdown speeds and how high of our angle of attack is when we're touching down and everything. And we have probably 2 to 3 safety seminars every year. And we all go over that data and we look at it all. So I think it's actually pretty awesome. It sounds like you think like, oh man, I'm getting tattled on. But at the end of the day, I'm sure as a union rep, I'm sure with the airlines as well as my school, it's that data can't really be touched by many people. Like you can't be identified whose data that is. There's a pretty large process that has to happen before they can identify somebody of that flight. Yeah. If we were to overspeed flaps, it would report it so they know to send the plane to maintenance to get checked out, but it wouldn't necessarily come back to the pilot. So it's not like having Big Brother. I don't know how the airlines work.
Yeah,
they just come straight for you.
I think it depends on the airline and their process. I know my airline, if you overspeed the flaps, and you don't report it, even the 767 does track that stuff. It's an older airplane, but it depends on how bad it is. Yeah, the company will come and ask you what's going on here.
You're right. Okay.
I think there's a few things they used to do they don't do anymore. So if you were doing a lot of unstable approaches, they used to have like a check airman comes in and sit and observe to see what the hell's going on. They stopped doing that. But if you do exceed certain limitations of the aircraft that cause structural damage, yeah, you're probably going to hear about it specifically. But By the way, Eric Mark here works for UND, University of North Dakota,
Okay.
but there's a flight instructor out there in Phoenix, that big Phoenix campus. So pretty good stuff. Yeah. Um, what are some talking about some of the things that dealing with a company? We all know it goes both ways when it comes to top and bottom. If you're a union, you get it from the company, you get it from the pilots, right? What are some of the things that some of these pilots you're like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? What are some stories you have? You're like, I cannot believe I just heard that. You have any of those? Like, obviously this guy's an absolute idiot, or you have any stories
You
like
you might have seen a couple on the internet already, but there's a lot of stories out there of people, taking advantage of the automation and stuff like that. That they're when they're flying and stuff. Um, but it's just you know, look at the pilot that had that mishap at Ronald Reagan. That was a captain and stuff, and it's stuff like that that makes you want. Why would he do? Why would he do an unstable approach like that? As a captain, if I'm your first officer and I say go around, you don't question me. You're like, okay, toga flaps 2, positive rate, gear up, speed up, boom, we're gone. You don't even question it. And this captain came in unstabilized, and the FO said, go around. And he's like, no, I think I got this.
Yeah.
And he was like, go around. He's like, no, I got this. And that's when that plane came in, and he scraped a wingtip on the runway in
oh,
Washington, scared the
oh,
crap
oh,
out of a American Airlines guy, to where the American Airlines is like, I'm not flying, I'm turning back. And I thought he was going to crash right into me and stuff. Everybody walked away from the flight and everything, but it's like, wait a minute, all of our training and everything, it doesn't matter who's sitting next to me. If they say go around, they've seen something I didn't. As soon as I hear that, positive rate, gear up, speed up, boom, we're gone.
yeah,
What do you see? Oh, I saw a coyote on the runway or something. That's happened
Yeah.
to me before.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
don't question when someone says go around. It's stupid stuff like that your training is embedded in you, and all of a sudden someone does this training, and all of a sudden the captain or the FO is like, no, I think I got this. It's like, wait a minute, your training just went out right out the window. What the
Right.
heck? What are you thinking of? And one of the things I like about the airlines is the call outs and the training. It's totally embedded in you because you're doing it over and over and over. And one of the things I had to do when I was in training for the airlines was those call outs. I never had call outs throughout all of my training. I was a single pilot. I never did call outs. So the call outs were totally new to me as an airline. So the way I trained for it was I would always freeze up in the sim. I'd be like, Toga, God dang it, what was that again? So I would have to take a tennis ball and bounce it off the wall, positive rate, gear up, speed up, and just go over those call outs over and over to drill it into my head. But it's stuff like that makes you wonder, like, wait a minute, all this training that you had from private pilot all the way up to the airlines, and you're going to throw it out all out the window and say, no, I think I got this. Where does that come from? That's
Yeah.
what blew my
yeah,
mind.
Especially in that situation, it's one thing to be in your own little plane flying yourself, but in the professional world, that just puts an extra layer of what the hell were you thinking? Like this is your job, your career, your life
yeah.
on the
Paper in the
line.
bag,
Well, one of the big things for
paper
me
in the bag.
was looking in the back of that plane and knowing that I was responsible for 76 lives. They were in my
Right.
hands.
Yeah,
Right.
So that's a big responsibility there. How can you say, no, I got this, And I'll always believe that the airlines should always have two people in the cockpit. No question, no doubt in my mind, because that's another safety measure. That's one more way we can stop that Swiss cheese effect.
Mm-hmm.
Something going through right through the hole, and it does take two pilots to fly an airplane. Doesn't matter what airplane it is when you have an emergency. I was
Right.
flying for a guy that has a Cirrus, and he went from a Cirrus to a Phenom 100, and he was a pilot, great pilot himself. But whenever he was flying his family, he got me on board just to do the radios and everything else, just in case he had an emergency, because he knew that emergency was going to take all of his 100% of his effort and everything else, and it was more safe for him to have two people in the cockpit. And I believe you should always have two people in the cockpit when you're flying commercial airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
not finding the AI stuff. You're not finding.
No, I mean, they're even talking about, like, hey, it's going to be fine for FedEx or UPS or whatever. There's no passengers. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's still, a big plane in the air, and you're relying on
You still got
AI.
houses under those planes. It's not,
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
other planes in the sky.
yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, cool
I
stuff,
don't,
man.
I don't think it's gonna go to a pilotless aircraft flying passengers. I don't think the passengers are gonna go for it ever. I mean, me personally, I want two people in that cockpit. I don't care how much it costs.
But this is what I think is gonna happen. Is I think it's gonna go there, and this is why I think it's gonna go there. Because this is what they said about the flight engineer. I mean, it was the
Yeah.
exact same thing. I don't think ever we couldn't even comprehend it, right? Having removed them that guy. For you and me, our generation, the people that grew up with us, and then maybe our kids, no. Maybe my kids, and then maybe our grandkids, no. But what's going on now with this new AI and all that stuff? In today's world, the kids, the new generation, maybe my grandkids, that's all they see. All they see, they're gonna have, Waymo and Tesla, picking them up and no drivers. You know, I saw this thing yesterday. It was in some city in Miami. It was a Kroger, and it was a self-sustained automated Kroger. You know what Kroger is? Am I saying that right? It's
Yeah.
it's a
Grocery store.
yeah, and basically, it's a warehouse, and it you order your food, it packs it up for you and everything, ships it for you. And they get into a point where they're trying to get to a point where it even gets it and puts it in your fridge for you. No human interaction. That's how crazy. It packs the truck drives it for itself. It comes in, you open the door, the robot comes in. I think Tesla is about to launch their AI robot in a couple months or whatever. They can do, I think it can do like 2,000 things. It can cook for you. It's like 40K or some crap, or 20K, some crap like that.
And now we're just getting too lazy.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is maybe my grandkids, or which is not too far from now, or even their kids, that's all they're gonna know. All they're gonna know is nobody drives, nobody does anything. So with that system, they won't have any problem getting into a plane because they just don't know any better.
I don't
Right?
think they'll fly. They won't have any. They won't have to leave the house anymore. The whole
Yeah.
aviation industry is gone.
That's a good point. Yeah. Oh man, the world. Yesterday. I wrote down all the AI system that can do all these stuff because I'm running for my company. Like I found an AI that can edit this podcast. That can remove all the silence, all this stuff that would take me hours and hours to do. Now, 30 seconds, done, edit, post, and now I can attach all the platforms and go upload. So that does it for me. I don't have to it's just a different time, and every day there's something new. Every day there's something new, and it's like, oh my god. So I don't think you and I, or maybe your grandkids or whatever, but I think their kids eventually will be okay with it. I think, but who knows? Never
Wow.
know, right? Yeah,
That's just weird to me.
yeah. Let's talk about as a segue here. So you said you lost your FAA medical, which is always something every pilot is worried about happening because it can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter your age, right?
Anybody.
Just like that, bam. And then FAA don't care, company don't care. I want to say they don't care, but they're moving on, right? Sorry, you can't fly. We don't need you, kind of thing. You know, I know some company, depending on how close you are, we've had some of the chief pop that says if you've lost your medical before you report it to the FAA, give me a call and we can see what we can do to maybe give you a non-flying position at the company potentially. But if you do it before, you call the FAA, then you are no longer qualified. The company might go, all right, have a good day. I don't know. But anyways, what's the process for you and what happened? How would you go through it? From step one, how does
I'll
that
try to
look
make
like?
it short. So basically,
All
I
right,
went
you
in.
got time.
I had a little bit of background about me was I had open heart surgery when I was 3,
Mm.
and had to jump through a lot of hoops just to get my medical to fly an airplane.
Oh,
But I ended up getting a class 3 and working my way up to a class 1 medical just fine. Had to do stress tests and EKGs and everything else all the time. But went in for a flight physical and had the doctor that I've always had for a long time. And he always asked me, "Hey, anything out of out of the ordinary or anything that you noticed?" And I was like, "I don't know if I'm getting old or not, but getting a little short on breath right now." And he's like, "Well, let's take a look at your last EKG. I know you had heart surgery and stuff when you were 3." And he's like, "EKG looks fine, but it's been a while since you've seen a cardiologist, so let's have you go see a cardiologist." So I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And they did more, more in-depth tests there. And the doctor came back and said, "Look, you're fine right now, but eventually you're going to have a heart attack and die."
Mm.
what?
He goes, "You in
What the
your,"
hell?
he goes, "when you did this surgery in 1972, they thought it was a fix-all, one-time fix-all, and everything else, everyone's good. That's not the case. As technology gets better, we need to go inside you and do a little working and tweaking, and then you'll be okay. We gotta put in a valve in your heart." And I was like, "Oh crap! So you're gonna open me up?" He's like, "No, we're not gonna open you up. Open you up. We're gonna go right through your leg
Uh,
into your artery up to your heart, and just pop in a valve, and you'll be good to go." I'm like, "Okay." So they did that, and I felt good, a month later or whatever. But when you get something like that done, the FAA steps in and says, "Well, you can't fly for at least a year. We want to evaluate you." I think they just want to make sure you're not going to roll over and die.
Mhm.
But anyway, you have to sit out
Yeah.
for a whole year. And then after that, you have to work with the AMAS, the Airmen's Medical Association Services, that works in conjunction with the FAA. And then you have to work with your AME. Your AME will work in conjunction with the AMAS and basically try to get your medical back. The problem I'm having right now is every time I jump through one hoop, they put another hoop saying, "Well, you got to get this. Well, we need more blood work. Well, we need this. Well, now we found out you got sleep apnea. You got to get a sleep apnea machine." Well, so it's one thing after another. I got another appointment with an AME on the 28th of April. So we'll see what happens. Now, am I going to be allowed to get a class 1? Again, I don't know. Can I get a class 3? And at the company that we worked for, digging into the rules and regulations of the company and the union, I found out that I could still be a first officer with a class 3 medical once I was hired on already by the company.
mm.
What?
There was a little stipulation there. And I was like, "Oh man, so I could be like if I get my class 3, I could be an FO for the rest of my life if I wanted to,
Oh,
until I hit retirement or whatever."
Is that with the air ambulance company?
No, no, this is with the airline that him and I
Oh,
worked for.
wow. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
because technically, if you think about it, prior to the Part 121 regulation, the ATP, prior to getting the ATP, you had first officers flying around without a first. No, you always had a first class department.
The thing that I read in the company was you had to have a first class medical to get hired on with the company.
Okay.
Now, if you became a first officer through the company and you had a medical issue, and it dropped down to a class 3, you could still be an FO, but you could not be a captain.
Okay.
Right, because you just can't fly PIC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd take that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I get a class 3, do I want to go back to that particular airline? No. So that cuts out
Yeah.
my things that I want to do there. But I could still be a flight instructor, something like that,
Mhm.
possibly, or whatever. If I wanted
Yeah.
to get back into that. But
What's the regulatory? Like Mark, you probably know this, because you don't even need a class 3 anymore to do like just recreational flying, right?
Well,
hell, you
you
just
could,
need basic medical to
yeah, you
do
can get
recreation.
basic med,
Yeah.
and you can even flight instruct with basic med. It comes with a little extra stipulation, but yeah, I'm instructing now on. I didn't want to do an EKG, so I just got a second class medical on my last one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been teaching on third class privileges now, so you can still do a decent amount. Yeah, and the basic med stuff isn't that really that much different than a class 3, really. Even
Yeah.
if you look at the stipulations that come with just a normal basic med, it's typically all the same stuff as a private pilot, anyways. Like as
Yeah.
far as size of airplane, seats, weight, speed, blah blah blah. So
Hmm.
it's certainly better than nothing.
Now,
Yeah.
the
Definitely.
simulator companies out there, like guys like me, they're like, hey,
Yeah.
you don't need a medical to work for
Right,
us.
Yeah. 100%.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that Envoy was hiring a bunch of 175. You saw that?
Yeah, yeah,
Give you
yeah.
like
I
50
saw that.
grand bonuses.
I always thought that'd be fun. Actually, like I knew I couldn't teach that. Obviously, I haven't would never have flown the airplanes I was teaching in or anything even like it. But
This
out in
people are doing that.
Tucson, out in Tucson at the CAE there, every now and then you see a job posting come up where they hire the second in commands for like the solo guy who's coming in but needs a partner. So you
Yeah,
basically get hired to go in and be their partner. And I was like, oh, that'd be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
there's a lot of jobs like that out there. I see those jobs all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. That 175 is a nice plane. When that freaking go around's a pain in the ass though. Gear up, flaps up, speed up, all these damn freaking.
missed approach, token flaps
Listen
two,
to this.
positive rate, gear up, speed
Listen
up.
to this. Dude, the 76 positive rate gear up. Yeah, 175. What is it? All this crap you gotta say. And that's crazy, man. Speed up, gear up.
Is that what you flew, Eric? Were you flying the E-Jet?
Yeah, the E-175, great airplane. I loved it. I mean, auto throttle, auto brakes, autopilot. It made shooting approaches very
Yeah,
nice,
Yeah,
beautiful
and we
plane.
we could do Cat 2 approaches, so it was great. I loved it,
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and we would take that plane into Hilton Head, Connecticut, land on a piece of pavement that's 5,000 feet long. So I mean, you could land it in a short bit of distance.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it was great.
yeah.
It's a nice plane.
It's no wonder all these regional airlines are going with that one. I mean, if you can get the same small airport performance as a CRJ, but you get something that the passengers aren't going to hate your guts,
Oh yeah,
why would you not get a plane like that?
I saw there's an article that's saying that the number one aircraft coming out of what airport was it? It was a 175. Like it was the aircraft that's doing the most taking off and landings. Seemed like and it was like the airline loved them, you know. So it's the plane. It's the standard.
yeah, and it's
Um,
a great plane to fly.
Beautiful
Heck,
plane to fly.
you know that, yeah.
All day, all night. Yeah, I'll fly that thing all day. I mean, you can program that thing from the bottom all the way to the top and then back down and never touch anything.
Oh
Watch
yeah.
it take off, autopilot on, sit there, you know,
I
at a
mean,
time at
that
a
auto
time.
that auto throttle's nice. Like when you're
Yeah,
coming into Houston, you have to step down and slow down. By the time you hit that fix, you're at the perfect speed. You haven't
yeah,
even touched the throttle.
it's
Hmm.
amazing. Yeah.
That's
So,
I
so you
told Richard the other
transition.
day.
Go ahead, Mark.
Just to button that up, I told Richard the other day that's the type of pilot I've been training my whole life to be. Set it and watch it.
Well, the airlines like those kind of pilots, the button pushers. They don't want you turn the autopilot off and hand flying. They prefer you to manage the plane, manage
Yeah.
your approach. Yeah.
And that's the problem I was seeing as a union rep with the new guys coming in. They could fly that plane all day long on autopilot, but you take the automation away from have them hand fly it, and they could not handle the plane.
The 175 is definitely like on a V1 Cup. You know what a V1 Cup is, Mark? There's a
Uh,
single
yeah,
engine, lost an engine. You know,
on
V1 Cup
takeoff.
or single lane approach. I will say that because it's the 175 is fly by wire, so I will say it's a pain in the ass doing a
Yeah.
single lane approach. You know,
That's the toughest maneuver that you'll do on a check ride is, the worst case scenario that you're going to have is losing an engine right when your FO calls V1, because V1, you take your hands off the throttle and no matter what, you're taking off. And when you call V1 and that hand comes off the throttle, all of a sudden you just lost an engine. And that plane starts going side to side. You have to keep it on the center line and take off and do all your emergency procedures and come back and advise the flight attendants what's going on, everything else. It's a tough plane to fly on single engine.
this one is. I will say that compared to the 76 is very easy. It's designed to be hand flown. I don't think the 175 is really designed to be hand flown. Um, so in my opinion, it's a pain in the ass doing single engine approaches.
And
You
on your
know,
check ride, you have to do, a perfect approach on
yeah.
single engine, hand flying it. And, it could be the most perfect approach you've seen. And all of a sudden they pull out the paper and say, no, you missed it by just a little bit, and
This
you're
is
like,
what I
oh,
hated. This is what I hated about this company because they're the only one I've seen that do stupid shit like that. Excuse my language. Is that okay? You're like runways inside, going visual, and you look up. You can maintain because some of these approaches will say glide path is not coincide with the PAPI, right? You ever heard that? You
Mhm.
know, so you're coming on your approach and you look up, you're aiming for the PAPIs, which might bring you lower or above it, and then which changes your path on that chart. And all of a sudden they're saying, "Well, look at this. If they get visual, you land in the touchdown zone, you're good," and they'll wreck you for that. I was like,
yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me. That's the only company I've ever seen that does that. It's
Oh,
bullshit.
it's ridiculous.
It's
It's like,
absolutely
wait a
ridiculous.
minute, dude. I landed on my 1,000-foot markers. What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
On the center line.
Safely controlled the touchdown zone.
Yeah.
Safe.
Yeah.
you know, um, like it's the only company that did this, and I was like, man, this is ridiculous. But anyways, good stuff. All right, so you transition now to kind of a civilian role. You talked about
Yeah.
you're working for the airport.
I kind of lucked out into this job. I didn't even know it existed, but saw an ad out there, and I was like, hey, I'll put in my name for this. And the job position was airside coordinator for this Class Bravo airport. And I was like, well, I don't know what that entails, but let me look it up and see. And it was basically making sure that this Class Bravo airport um, maintained the 139 rules and regulations of the FAA. So what's going on with the 139 is, a taxiway center line. Nobody thinks about this, but it has to be yellow and it has to be black. The yellow has to be 6 inches wide. The black has to be 6 inches wide. Can there be any beads? The beads that you see at nighttime. You're a nighttime pilot. You can see the reflective beads. Can there be any beads on the black part of it? No, you probably never thought about that before. And like, oh yeah, I guess the yellow's the only one that's really lit up at nighttime.
Yeah,
And then how do you know if you're on a SMIGS route? Well, the SMIGS route, the yellow line is 12 inches wide instead of
you want
six
to
inches
explain what
wide.
that? You want to SMIG is, Mark?
No, I've
SMIGS
never heard
is,
of it.
have you heard of it?
I have not. No.
So a SMIGS is basically when the fog comes in and visibility is reduced to anywhere between 600 and 1200 RVR. So when the visibility goes from 600 to 1200 RVR, how do you get a plane from the terminal to the beginning of the runway? Through a SMIGS
Right.
route. And not only do you have lighted, the lights on the center line, but the center line itself is 12 inches wide instead of 6 inches wide, letting the pilots know, hey, this is a SMIGS route. You're on the correct path. So, like, if they take a wrong turn and all of a sudden they notice that the center line went down to 6 inches, they'd be like, oh, wait a minute. What's going on? I don't have any more center lines. And that can easily happen when visibility goes below,
It's
when it
called
goes around 600 RVR.
Service Movement Guidance System. That's what
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard of it, but
Okay, yeah.
I've never heard. I guess I didn't know in detail what it entailed like that. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because you can, for example, when I've done Cat 3s where it's auto land, and you land, you can't see anything. Like you're zero, it's almost zero visibility.
Yeah.
Um, and you might be able to see maybe 10 feet in front of you if you taxi really slow. So generally, the SMIG chart will have you roll all the way down to the end of the runway, and that will generally start the SMIG route, and then you have to report sometime. There's numbers, and then there are lights, and a specific, and it will guide you to the taxi on the taxiway to get you into the terminal area, not terminal, the ramp area. So generally ATC will like, okay, let me know when you're on spot 21 or something like that, and I'll give you
Yeah.
the routes based on that. You taxi it based on lights, and then you announce your position and all that stuff. But
Okay.
The other thing is, too, I've seen visibility. You know how, a lot of times you'll hit a spot where it's kind of clear, and all of a sudden you'll go 10 feet and you won't be able to see anything. It just changes rapidly. And I've had pilots for airlines call up and say, hey, we're going to need an escort. And then I'll get the call to bring my truck, and the plane will follow my flashing lights and follow me because I know
oh,
where I'm going. I drive that airport every day, all day long.
well, that's you, huh?
Yeah, that's me. So yeah, we take care of a lot of things out there, but I never knew what this job entailed, and all my supervisors and everything are really good. They're like, hey, unless there's a alert 3, don't call us. We don't want to hear from you because you already know how to run this airport. So just unless there's an alert 3, don't call us. So an alert
What's an
3
alert
would be,
three?
huh?
What's an alert 3?
So we have 3 different alerts: alert 1, alert 2, alert 3. Alert 1 is like Southwest is taxiing from the terminal, and before they get to the runway, they're like, hey, we got a little issue right now. We're going to need to pull over and run some, figure out why this light's on or something else like that. Or we got something weird going on with an engine. That'd be like an alert 1 where we get a call saying, hey, there's a disabled aircraft. He's out of the way. It's not impeding on any other operations out here, but just to let you know, this is going on, and I'll issue an alert 1. Alert 2 is basically like Southwest or somebody's coming in and they declared an emergency, but they have not landed yet. They're definitely coming into this airport, and it might not be an issue, but it could be an issue. So they might have a landing gear light on or something like that. They're they're trying to troubleshoot it, and they're coming in. So I get all the ARF vehicles, all the fire engines and everything. That alert 2 goes out to everybody, and the fire engines will be stationed where they need to be stationed. They got 3 minutes to get from their fire station to get to where their spot is, where they need to be ready for that aircraft to land. And then alert 3 is basically like, okay, this commercial airline just landed on the runway and skidded off the runway, and they're deploying the slides, and everybody's evacuating right now, and there's probably injuries.
Yeah.
So and when you have an alert 3, everybody gets called. The mayor of the city gets called. Everybody gets called.
Wow.
So basically, I always issue an alert 2.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you'll get the call like if the Southwest plane has engine issues or they're going to troubleshoot something. You said I get a call. Who's calling you? Is that like ATC that's calling you?
So yeah, that's air traffic control saying, "Hey, we just got a Southwest or whoever." I'm just saying a name out there.
Right.
It could be any airline. We just got a call that this airline's coming in. He has this issue. want to let you know about it. And I say, okay. So then I pick up my radio and I call the Airport Operations Command Center. And I say, hey, this is airside operations. I'm issuing an alert 2 right now. We have a Southwest or whoever coming in. There's 139 people on board. They got 3,000 pounds of fuel. They're going to land at 10:30, and they're going to land in 15 minutes or whatever, and I'm issuing an alert 2 right now. And so then the crash phones go off for everybody. The fire department's crash phone goes off. The police crash phone goes off. Everybody that has a radio at the airport, their radios go off with a certain siren, and everybody has to switch to an operations frequency. And you're not going to get these calls on this frequency like, hey, I got this luggage that's just sitting here and nobody's claimed it or anything. They know they're not going to be talking that on this emergency. So, I issue an alert to the fire engines. The fire station has 3 minutes to get to their spots. And then if it's just me, where do I station myself? Do I station myself midway down the runway, at the end of the runway? Where do I station myself? Where would you guys think I would station myself?
Probably end of the runway, right?
I don't know. I would station myself at the what?
I would just say I don't know. I guess my guess would be somewhere in the middle of it all. So you get
actually, I station myself at the very beginning of the runway, because when that plane lands, I get on the runway and I have to do a runway inspection to make sure there's no metal on the runway, no parts on the runway that's going to cause a blowout, and we don't have a Concorde situation where they blew a tire and sucked up the fire into their fuselage or whatever. I make sure there's no debris on the runway. So I have to do a runway inspection right when that plane lands, and I have to inspect that whole runway. I had the fire department following him when he gets off, so that's no big deal. But I station myself at the beginning of the runway. Gotcha. And so, then he gets off and he either taxis to the terminal or he just stops at the taxiway. And, another call that I need to make, airport's closed or the runway's closed or whatever, and I close that. I have the authority in my job to shut down the whole airport if I wanted to. I'm the airport coordinator, airside coordinator. Anything after the safety line where you get checked by TSA and everything, I'm in charge of. So anything on the ramp, I'm in charge of. If a crane gets put up, they have to have a 7460, and I have to make sure that's valid, and they're within their height that they issued that study to. So that's another thing, cranes near the runway or near the airport. Everything you're in charge of. Wow. So it's a pretty cool job, and I didn't even know it existed. The pay's pretty good. It doesn't pay as what I was making as a pilot, but it's not too bad. I'm getting my bills paid and everything else, and there's great health and dental and all that good stuff. And like as a flight instructor, you're always learning. And when it comes to a point where you think you know everything, that's the time to hang it up. You don't know everything. Right. And I was like, man, I know a lot, but I don't know a lot that I need to know. And this job has really taught me that I didn't really know as much as I needed to know. For example, the taxi lines and the SMIGS lines and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the emergency procedures and stuff. I learned a lot that happens on the airport from the ground side that I was just amazed at. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about this.
I think, sadly, if you ask a lot of, we'll say younger pilots, but what I meant is like student pilots, maybe let's just say some flight instructors probably couldn't even tell you how long a runway stripe is, which should be important information, or how much space is in between each line, right?
80 feet.
Yeah, and each line's 120.
Yeah. 120 and 80 foot space. Except for the airport that I work at, because on this one runway in the middle, the lines shrink, and they got approval by the FAA for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we have intersecting runways, and so they had to space them accordingly.
Interesting.
So where would they mark that? They just put that in like the airport info page or something, and
Yeah.
okay. So you better be reading those, pilots, because otherwise you're judging your landing based on that. You're gonna get some false information.
Well,
That's funny because there's a check airman here at my company, and that was his thing, like his final thing in the day that he would ask you those questions. You know, it'll put you down to like whatever it is, a certain distance or whatever on the runway, and it'll give you a measurement and say how far. Give you like a RVR, and based on the lines or whatever, is like, what's your RVR? And if you can tell them that right away, the check ride's good and you're done. But if you
oh
Mm-hmm.
can't
wow.
call them, you continue. So he does it all the time. You will think people would know and would be ready for it all the time. You know, so that's interesting.
Well, we had a
Um,
check airman at the company that we worked at, and one of his things was like, okay, how many fan blades are on the E-175? It's like,
yeah, stuff like
what?
yeah,
Why would
dude.
I care? I don't know. Why would I care?
Yeah, yeah. Some of these,
I'll know if I lose one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna get a vibration light.
yeah. You deal with bird strikes as well. That's your responsibility.
Oh yeah, yeah. The cool thing is, say somebody reports a bird strike, and you come up to the plane, and you see like blood all over the windshield. It doesn't just stop there for me. I take a little Q-tip or whatever, and I scrape off a little bit of the blood, put it in an envelope, and that envelope gets sent off to the Smithsonian. Now the Smithsonian will email me back within a couple weeks or whatever the species of the bird, and in my report what time it was hit, at daytime, nighttime, what weather conditions, everything else. And we're trying to mitigate bird strikes. So, for example, like our airport, we just had a wildlife meeting today with all the shareholders and everything else, and we're trying to get rid of a retention pond off the runway because there's a lot of bird strikes on this one runway at a certain height. And come to find out, there's a retention pond right there, and that's attracting a lot of birds.
Yeah.
So you're getting a
Wow.
lot of big birds too, like egrets that are
Yeah.
attracted to the water. And you
Yeah.
suck in an egret, you're going to lose an engine.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
100%.
Kind of.
and we work with the USDA also. They're out there every single day, and they have these traps out at the. You guys probably don't know this, but they have traps out at the airport with pigeons in the bottom. And then, like a falcon or a hawk will see the pigeons, and he'll swoop down and he'll land on this pressure plate, and a roof collapses on top of him, encasing them in this cage. Then the USDA comes in. They put him in a little carry case. They bring him in the office. They put a band on his arm. They record it with the FAA. They record it with Parks and Wildlife, and then they take the bird 60 to 100 miles away from the airport and
Wow.
they release him. So they do
Wow.
a catch and release also with hawks and endangered birds, eagles or whatever. They don't do that with doves or anything, but the big raptors and stuff they do.
Do you guys do any other type at your airport of bird mitigation? Like I know don't they have like different sound systems or
Yeah,
cameras or
if I see birds out there, I'll crank my siren. We also have pyrotechnics. So I have guns in my vehicle. I drive around all day long in a F-250, and I have a little like starter pistol in my truck, and I have pyrotechnic caps. So if I see like a flock of doves or pigeons or something like that, or a flock of birds around the approach end of a runway, I'll go over there with my bangers, what they're called. There's two sets. One creates a huge noise and sparkles all over the place, and the others, it's almost like a Roman candle going off, and
huh,
fireworks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so I'll try those, but you can't keep on using those because then the birds get used to that.
right?
So then we have the USDA go out there, and they go out there in not peak hours but slow hours, and they start shooting birds with shotguns and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they start getting the doves out of there, getting the killdeers out of there, you know, getting those birds out of there.
Yes, for free lunch in the hangar that day.
You would think, but one of the firefighters got in trouble because we gave him a whole bunch of doves and he decided to clean them right then and there. We had feathers all over a taxiway and guts and everything, and he had to clean them up. And so after that, yeah, no more.
That's funny.
That's so funny.
And he didn't know he did it because it was nighttime. So he got woken up by the chief, and the chief woke him up and said, "Did you clean a bunch of birds last night?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Go outside and take a look and clean it up." And there was blood and guts everywhere all over the taxiway.
God.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's funny.
So yeah, no more.
That sounds like a cool job. So I was telling Mark that I'm gonna come down. I don't know if you want to. I'm not sure if you want me to say like where you live or what city, but anyways, I'm gonna come down to the airport and like stick a couple cameras on me, and we'll come through and hang out with you and check it out, man.
You could do for all your listeners out there. We dropped enough hints and stuff. If they figure out where I work, they might win something from your drone company or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they figure it out. They probably will, man. We'll see. But that's good stuff. Have you seen any crazy emergencies throughout the time?
Well,
anything crazy? Anything too
not
bad?
crazy emergencies, but we did have one last week. Let's see if I can talk about it. It was a Southwest plane because it was on the news, so everybody knows about it probably.
Oh, okay. It was on the news. You're fine.
Yeah, it was on the news. And I happened to see what was happening because I was outside. I was in charge of this pavement project, and I was watching over the guys fixing this pavement. They were cleaning it up. They were getting it ready to open. And I just happened to look over and see a Southwest flight take off and a bunch of flames come out of his right engine. All of a sudden, a bunch of smoke. And I was like, oh, crap. He just blew an engine right on takeoff. So I jumped in my truck and I listened to the control tower frequency. And sure enough, I hear tower, this is Southwest 3006. Just lost our right engine. Need radar vectors. We need to burn off a little bit of fuel. They were going to Mexico at the time, so they had a bunch of fuel. They had a good amount of fuel on board. They were just taking off. So they had to go burn off some fuel, which was good. They gave us enough time to get ready. So I issued an alert to the fire engines were on standby. They were right there within 3 minutes. I had another guy with me working. Usually there's two of us. That day there was two of us. Sometimes it's only me, but I had another guy working. So I put him on the beginning of the runway and I stayed at the end of the runway just in case something happened. So he could do the runway inspection. So Southwest came and landed. And when they landed, they used up all the runway and they taxied off the runway onto Taxiway Hotel. And then they were advised by ground control to go to the emergency frequency. The emergency frequency, now they're talking with the firefighters. Firefighters are going to be asking them, what's your brake temperature, stuff like that. What was the problem? And before they could even get into that, all of a sudden I heard on the emergency frequency, we're evacuating. And so as a commercial airline pilot and a flight instructor, you know what that entails. If you're in a big plane, you're deploying the slides, and it's not a light event. I mean, people are going to get injured sliding down those slides. And not only that, you're going to have all these people in a secured airspace, on a taxiway walking around. You have to keep track of all them people too. And so he said, and this is what kind of ticked me off too. He's like, we're evacuating. And the firefighter was like, can you say that again? And I was like, dude, he's not going to say that again. He's in a hurry. He's shutting down all his switches. He's shutting down the engine. He's deploying fire extinguishers. He has a checklist he has to do. And he's like, we're evacuating. We're evacuating. And the firefighter's like, wait, can you say that again? And of course, he shut the radios off by that point. Why did they evacuate if they landed safely and they already shut down that engine? Was because what I found out later on was once they landed and taxied off the runway, one of the flight attendants got on the phone with the captain and said, "Hey, we got smoke in the back of the cabin." Now, anytime there's smoke in the plane, you're getting those people off because you don't want the plane just bursting into flames and everybody dies. You're going to play it safe or whatever, and you're going to deploy those slides and get everybody off before that plane catches on fire. So everybody's sliding down the slides, and it was the funniest thing I ever saw. It was like domino effect. The first person slides, and the slide was so fast, he had so much speed, he did a face plant. Next guy, he did a face plant. Next guy, face plant. And it's one after another, after another. And I was like, oh my God, this is too funny. You had people standing on the wing. For some reason, they got out and stood, all the doors opened up. And then they were standing on the wing taking selfies.
Oh God!
Now then they had to go back inside the cabin and then make their way to the slide. They can't just jump off the wing. I don't know why they were instructed to get out on the wing, but they were. Then they had to go back inside. So they're out there taking selfies and stuff. I'm surprised nobody fell off the wing. I sent you that picture too, Richard.
Unless you want me to I'm not going to show it. I'll leave it.
No.
Yeah,
And so anyway, not only did we have that, I had to get a whole bunch of police officers over there to contain all these people. We had the fire engines over there. And then all of a sudden our buses, which we have a contract for buses just in case this happens, to bus these 139 people back to the terminal, they never showed up. So I instructed somebody on our crew to go out and commandeer the vans that take you to your parking garage. Now, these vans only hold 14 people. And I had 3 of them come in. And, well, we had to do back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Oh, my God, dude.
While all this was going on, and I'm in charge of this whole operations because you have Operations 3 and Operations 4. Operations 3, which was me, I'm in charge of the airport. Operations 4, he's coming up to me, and he's like, what would you like me to do? I'm here to help you. What would you like me to do? He's my helper. So it's like a captain and an FO. All of a sudden, my supervisor comes up, and he's like, hey, great job, Eric, this and that. And as we're talking, he looks over, and he's like, is that smoke coming from the runway? And I was like, what? And I look over, and I saw a little bit of smoke. So I went over to the fire captain, and I was like, hey, are you guys done over here? The brake temp's good. The engine's contained. Everything's good. He's like, yeah. I was like, it looks like we got a fire on the end of the runway over here in the grass area. Well, when they landed, they were shooting out hot shards of metal out of that engine, and they were flying into the grass, and it created 5 grass fires.
Wow. So
not only do we have an alert 2 going on, now we have grass fires, and it was funny if you think about it in hindsight, because I was like, hey, Southwest just cleared the runway. The runway's still closed. I closed, when it landed, I said, runway's closed. They made it off the runway, and I said, okay, Southwest is off the runway. We can open the runway back up because I had about 20 planes waiting to take off. And I opened the runway back up, and all of a sudden we realized we had these fires out there. And I'm like, close the runway, runway's closed. So we closed the runway again, and then we're dealing with the grass fires and everything. They put them all out. The fire department went back to their building. I'm dealing with this alert again. And then my supervisor comes up to me. He's like, hey, about a half hour, 45 minutes has already lapsed. And he's like, did you open the runway again? And I look, and there's about 30 planes waiting to take off. Yeah. And I'm like, runway's open. It was just one thing after another that day. It was just crazy.
Bro.
Wow.
I don't know how sometimes I don't know how like a lot of these airport operate, man. There's so much that can go wrong. There's so much stuff moving, so much going on all the time. The fact that they get planes off the runway or off the ground or off the gate is crazy to me sometimes.
So let me ask you a question, Richard. You're a captain. You fly at nighttime or whatever. But as a commercial airliner, what's the typical space between you and the guy in front of you for landing? Like you're coming in to land, and there's a plane on the runway. What's the typical space they usually give you?
Oh, it really does depend on the airport. So
Yeah.
a regular airport will be around 5 miles, 5
Yeah.
nautical miles. If you're going into O'Hare or even sometimes Dallas or LaGuardia, um, I've seen it coming in on the approach where we're like, okay, you're on short approach, 2 miles, and that guy is just we're
Yeah.
about to go over the runway, and that guy's just getting off. All right, he's off. We can land. So it depends
That's
on the operation.
Yeah, that's the way it is at the airport I'm working at. Because that's what struck me. I'm like, are you kidding? He's cleared to land. There's a guy on the runway, and this
Yeah,
guy's on a 2 mile final. Are you kidding me? And
yeah.
he's
There's
like,
a
such and such, you're
regulation.
cleared to take off. I'm like, he's on a 2 mile final. What are you doing? Tell him to
Yeah,
take the runway.
absolutely. Like they'll clear to take off, like the guy's rolling, and they'll have you line up, and he's rolling, and they'll clear to take off, and he's still rolling. I've seen that kind of thing. There's a regulation that allows that. I forgot what it is. What gives you certain spacing or whatever it is. But yeah, man. It just depends on the operation and how busy the airport is. I mean, I think like um, O'Hare. I mean, they do what the hell they want. Really, I don't even think.
Yeah.
I don't think the FAA regulation works in that airport. They just whatever. I mean, you can taxi around with no instructions at that airport.
Yeah. And then they'll put you in the penalty box for asking a question. You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
wait, what? Oh, you didn't hear what I said? Taxi over there. And they'll leave you
Shut
there
up.
for a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, God dang.
100%.
I was just
Yeah.
like, can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. But yeah.
Also, keep in mind that there's a lot of airports out there that are training facilities for the control towers. Like the one I work at is a training facility. So you have a turnaround in the tower and all new guys in there too, training to
Oh,
be a control tower, air traffic control.
yeah.
I
Wow,
never
that's
knew
Seen
that
that
till I went.
where I've seen it where you can tell the guy's new, and another, you have like another guy that jumps in every so often,
yeah.
cuts him off.
We
You
we
know.
get
Yeah.
that we get that at our airport every now and then. You'll hear
Yeah.
a new voice and they'll give you an instruction and somebody will jump on right away and be like, yeah, disregard that. This is what I want you to do. And you're like, oh, someone's training
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. 100%. But I would say, I would say sometimes because this happened to me. I've done it where there's, and it's in like Dallas, Fort Worth, where the plane in front of us is taking off. He's down the runway, right? I guess they're considering the V1. And once you're at V1, that's it. You're going, right? And that's speed. But he's rolling and then we're clear to take off. And I'm thinking, if this guy rejects, like, but I'm assuming it's considering the fact that the speed is at V1 and there's no way he's gonna reject it. He has to continue no matter what kind of thing. But yeah,
I haven't personally seen that at our airport. They usually wait until just when those wheels clear the runway and then they're like, okay, you're clear to take off.
yeah,
But yeah, I've heard about that before. I haven't seen it.
yeah, yeah. Anyways, man, it was good talking to you. This was a good podcast. I think you should definitely come back on if you want to come back on and be one of our regular guests. It'd be great. Just to keep in touch and
Hey,
learn.
you have me back on. We'll start talking about signs and how they comply with 139 and stuff. We haven't even gotten into the signs
Oh
yet.
yeah, because I have some of your signs and all that stuff up here, but you can definitely you see here. Drop this in here. Let's see if I can.
I sent you a picture of one of the signs, and I was going to ask you, as a pilot, what's the matter with that? Because it's a 139 deviation, but
Which one is it?
not.
I'll look it up.
Should be black and yellow, like a taxiway sign or something like that.
Let's see here. This one.
Nope.
Oh, let's see.
It's a sign that's going to be lit up at nighttime, off in the grass.
Oh, okay, got you. Like a 1-3 left.
Maybe pull that one up.
Hold on now.
Hope everyone knows what that one is.
Yeah, that one right there. What's the
Yeah.
matter with that sign? That's a 139 deviation.
That means you're on runway 13 left, but it's a taxiway. Right?
Well, what's the matter with that sign? It
Is it
has
the
nothing to
size of
do
it?
with 1-3 left or anything else, but it's a violation.
Oh,
Is it the size or the?
No, you see how the top of it is kind of like white, but the bottom is yellow. It has some sun damage,
yeah,
Not
like the
yeah, it's
board.
faded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's faded. So I'm gearing up for a 139 inspection. That sign is going to be replaced because that's a violation. It can't be sun damage. It has to be a continuous color of yellow around that border. The top border can't be white compared to the bottom being yellow.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, duh, Richard. God.
Yeah. How does that? Yeah.
But
Okay,
it's like
okay.
little things like that you're in charge of making sure the airport's in compliance with.
What's with?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this. So what's up with this? Let's see here. What's going on with that?
Oh, so that's ponding. That's telling me that I got a drainage issue. We cannot have any
Okay.
ponding on the grass area. And there's a previous picture that I found where the problem's happening, and then I took that picture to show, when the drains get clogged up, this is what happens. The water has nowhere to go, and if we're expecting more rain tomorrow, and this is getting close to the taxiway, so you don't want standing water on the taxiway or the
Yeah.
runways. The runways are designed to run the water off on the sides, and then from the sides they have to have drainage to go
Mhm.
somewhere. You don't want standing water on the runways or taxiways, otherwise you're going to be hydroplaning.
Yeah.
And that's
Definitely.
telling everybody, hey, we got a drainage problem. And right
Yeah.
now that airport's flooded right now, and we're expecting a lot more rain tomorrow. That's a piece of pavement that's going to be cut out and replaced because that's alligator cracking, and that whole thing has to be replaced. It's a big, almost like pothole. And I took orange paint and I painted that, showing,
Okay.
hey, this is a bad situation here.
You know what?
Now this
You know.
taxiway is closed right now, so
Okay.
it's no big deal right now.
You
Planes
know.
aren't running over that.
You know what airport that was a really bad had really bad taxiways was O'Hare. Like you'd be taxiing, like bumping around, boom, boom, the potholes and stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
the problem is they're so busy. It's when do you
Yeah.
work on those potholes? You're gonna have to close
100%.
down taxiways, runways. You're gonna have to close them down at nighttime when it's kind of slower. So the taxi line is obscured, and that's a 139 deviation. The
Okay. Gotcha.
1 Charlie is also a deviation because it's not pink. But anytime there's new pavement that you see, they put in new pavement, and there's not a
Mm-hmm.
continuous center line, which, by
Mm-hmm.
the way, that's a SMIGS route. That's 12 inches wide instead of 6 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime there's a space between a continuous center line, it's going to have to be repainted. That's
Gotcha.
a
Yeah, you'll see
139
that.
violation.
Yeah.
So real quick going back. So those lines typically are 6 inches. That from black border to black border or yellow to yellow?
From the left edge of the yellow to the right edge of the yellow has to be 6 inches.
Okay, got it.
And
Got it.
and the black on a regular taxiway, the black line has to be 6 inches, the yellow line has to be 6 inches, and then the next black line has to be 6 inches.
Okay. I'm putting that in my vault. So when someone tries to spring a quick one on me, I'll be like, I know that.
Yeah, this is good for you as a flight instructor. I mean, your students should, be aware of the taxi diagrams and stuff.
That way I could be like, look, that's 6 inches, that's 6 inches, that's 6 inches. You're 20 inches off the center line.
Yeah, definitely. Now this sign's going to be changed out before I get my inspection because, as you can see, the yellow has some gaps in it, some pieces of paint that are missing,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it just can't have any spaces where there's no paint. There's no reflection at nighttime in those gaps, and you
Gotcha.
have to have reflection as a pilot at nighttime, and the reflection in the yellow depends on if it's a center line or taxi line. They have to have type 3 glass beads in the yellow.
Oh. Type
So
3.
another quick question for you. So the 139, the part 139, is that just class Bravo then?
I would say, well, I only work with Class Bravo, but I would say any commercial airport, Class
Okay.
Charlie, Class Delta, Waco Regional probably has to. Yeah, I'm sure they comply with 139 rules and regulations. Any airport that does commercial aviation has to comply with 139 rules and regulations.
Got it.
So this is a zipper road. This is a service road that we use, but the white and black is basically telling the people that are driving on here, hey, you're right next to a taxiway. So if a plane comes the opposite direction, get off this service road onto the right side and stay away from the wingtips. Now, this road is closed during SMIG's operation because we don't want vehicles getting close to planes. So we close down this road when anytime the RVR drops below 1200.
Oh, got you.
And there's the old control tower. There's another hint of
Oh, just about
what
to say
airport I'm working at.
it. Can you tell, Mark?
Well, you told me, so
Oh, I did.
so
Got you.
I could make an educated guess now. I've only been to that airport once, and that was when my first trip to Europe, actually. That was the airport we flew home to.
Oh, really?
Well, let me know when you're back out there and I'll give you a tour.
I think I told Richard the other day. I was telling somebody I am actually because when I make the jump to the airlines, I know that Houston's a base for a few of the ones that I'm thinking about going to. So I was actually going to go check it out probably at some point this summer.
Well, let me
Look
know,
at the
you
area.
know, and we'll have dinner some night or something. I'll get you over the house and stuff and show you
That'd be
around.
awesome.
I'm gonna come
Yeah,
out
that'd
and
be great.
stay with you. Bring some cameras, do a
Yeah,
docu-series. You know, it'll be fun. So,
yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
yeah.
I'll get you out on the airport so you can shoot some coyotes, you know, have some fun.
Do
Now
they
you're
have
talking.
a GA? Is there a GA terminal there? Like a
Oh
million
yeah,
there?
we have 6 FBOs over there.
Okay.
So we have, you know, a whole bunch of FBOs that do a lot of private business, a lot of air ambulance business,
Mm,
you know, flex jets, citation shares, net jets, they all come in there. You got Cessnas out there. You got every type of airplane out there.
gotcha.
That's fun.
Okay. All right. Well, anyways, it was just good, Eric. It was really nice having you on. Like I said, we'll do this again a little more often, and you know,
Yeah, let
we'll
me
put you
know when
on.
you guys are ready for me again.
Yeah, man. I'll have you on. You know,
I'll
I'll
try to
keep
get
up.
some new material for you guys.
I'd
Yeah.
like to hear a little more about the air ambulance experience. I think
Okay.
some of our listeners would be interested in that. See what that was all about.
Yeah, I liked it. I really did. I may go back to it. You never know.
Yeah.
There's a couple of offers that were out there at this airport I'm working at right now. But it all depends if I get my medical back. So we'll just have to
Yeah,
see. I
yeah,
will tell you, I'm probably not going back to the company him and I worked for.
yeah. That was on my short list. Only because of other programs that they offered. But after Richard had a bad experience, I was like, okay, yeah, I didn't work this hard to be fooled around with so much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, and I don't know. This is a feeling I got, Richard. Maybe they did that on purpose to try and keep people at the company. Well, you got this ding on your record. You got this ding on your record. You know, you're gonna have to stay here now. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just something that I felt.
It was
I mean, they
definitely
weren't
different.
there. It felt like they weren't there to make you a better pilot or to get you to pass a check ride. They were there to fail you.
It was like it
mm,
was high school, man. This is the weirdest thing ever. Never seen anything
Yeah.
like it. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, all right. This was good. Like I said, we'll do it again, Eric. Thanks for coming on. It was very educational.
Thanks for having me,
We'll have
guys.
you, yeah, we'll have you to be one of our regular guests, man. Come on and chat more often. You know, that'd be
You
good.
got it. Just give me a call. I'm here for you guys.
Definitely.
Appreciate
Mark,
that.
got anything you want to say?
Any pictures you guys want me to take at the airport or whatever, just let me know.
Yeah, if you
And
want, what we can do actually, if you want to, we can have like an Eric segment or something where if you want to, if every episode you just want to send in like, if randomly you have something you want to send us, like a picture, and we can go over it and talk about whatever it is, it'll be like a regular segment, or we can have you on to have you do it, you know?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
you
good.
guys as pilots, you may see something at an airport, some marking or something, and say, "Hey, what is this?" Or
Yeah.
I read this in the 139 rules and regulations. Do you guys really have to do this, or what's going on with this, or whatever? And we'll get into that too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I'll definitely pick your brain because that's kind of has been my backup plan for my medical situation if I were to come across one is either
You know,
safety or airport operations. And I'm actually thinking about going back to school for another degree in
that's what
just
I was
airport
thinking of doing
operations.
too, but I ended up lucking into this job, and then I was like, this isn't a bad gig at all, and I'm surprised I didn't know about this before.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's got to be exciting, stressful, everything packed into one.
Now, I
Yeah.
will tell you that also the job that I have right now, you can, once you do have that job, airside coordinator, you can basically put a resume into any airport in the country and get the same position, airside coordinator.
Hmm,
So, like, if you do become an airside coordinator at Phoenix and you want to move to Florida or something, put in your resume and you can get transferred right over there.
wow.
As long as you have that 139 experience, that is the key. Just like being a flight instructor or a commercial airliner, as long as you're type rated in this plane, you can go here or whatever. So once you have that in, and that you're an airside coordinator, you can go anywhere in the country.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not dime a dozen either. So,
No, no, and there's there's a lot of people out there putting their resumes in and stuff like that, and there's a big list. And I don't know how I lucked into this job, but I did.
That's
that's
good, man.
awesome.
And it's all you guys know it too. It's all who you know too.
Yeah, yeah,
They may have a stack this big, but if I come in and I say, "Hey, I know this guy Richard, and I worked with him and this and that," your name goes to the top of the list just
Yeah.
because you have an
or the
in there.
bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's all who you know.
yeah. This is why one of the reasons I started this podcast. It is who you know in
Yeah.
life, right? So 100%.
Yeah, if you got any listeners out there that want to know more about it, they'll probably shoot you questions. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
We're eventually going to be doing this podcast live, so it seems like we can because having you on, you're able to do a full segment and it's safe, right? Obviously, we don't want to do anything that's going to cause you to cause a disruption in your aviation career or whatever. So we're
oh
probably
no,
gonna start doing this live. So we'll have a live audience with questions coming in live, a chat we can answer and all that stuff. So it'll be very interactive. So we'll start doing that probably the next two episodes. So when you come back on, probably we'll have a live chat and everything, and going through, and we'll just do a Q&A. It'll be fun.
yeah.
So
You guys let me know, and my schedule is usually 5 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, so I got my nights free.
cool, man.
perfect.
Awesome, bro. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
So hold on a second, guys. I'm gonna end the podcast. Wait until the exit completes, and then you exit. Okay? Because in my room. So I'll edit this part out, and I'll say, this was a great podcast. It was great having you on, Eric. I learned a lot. Love to have you back, man. It was great. We'll see you again soon. Have a good day.